Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. So welcome once again, dear devotees, to Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam, and thank you so much for kindly joining in. Every time I see the many dedicated devotees who join in to listen to Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam, and although my presentation may certainly be not very ideal or not up to the mark that Srila Rupa Goswami would have expected, but still this is a feeble attempt to try and present something on Srila Rupa Goswami's Upadeshamritam. And if he is pleased even once with this attempt, then it will be the success of this series of Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam. Dear devotees, with this we will begin today's session on Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam. We have lots of time to study, so this is a detailed study, and we have been discussing the 7th verse, but in the 7th verse also we have taken a slight turn towards discussing the 10 Namaparadhas. We will come back to the 7th verse very soon as we have discussed the 10 Namaparadhas. But it is important to understand the 10 Namaparadhas and to understand the implication of each and every aparadha, and to understand how not to commit that particular aparadha. So dear devotees, we will begin with an invocation verse to Sri Rupa Goswami. Ratnakaradhyena sudhalpakumbha avishkritah sostu mahan rameshah yastvatra piyusharasabdhikarta Srila Ruposti mameshta devah. The Supreme Lord Sri Dhanvantari, the husband of Lakshmi who extracted a small jar of nectar from the large ocean, may certainly be great. However, that personality who ended up creating an entire ocean of nectar, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that personality named Srila Rupa Goswami, is certainly my most worshipable deity. So by considering Srila Rupa Goswami as my most worshipable deity, dear devotees, I continue discussing the 7th instruction. Syat Krishna Nama Charitadi Sitapya Vidya Pittopatapta Rasanasya Narochikanu Kintvadaradanuddinam Khalu Saiva Jushta Swadvikramad Bhavati Tadgadamula Hantri. So the entire discussion is about how to make Harinam appear tasteful to us. And this is what the verse focuses upon. The translation is as follows. How amazing! Even though Krishna's names, pastimes, etc. are certainly sweet like sugar candy, they do not appear tasteful to a tongue bittered by the jaundice of beginningless ignorance. However, if that same sugar candy is accepted every day with due respect, then it certainly becomes progressively tasteful and fully destroys that jaundice at its root. So we are supposed to respect Sri Harinam, Sri Hari Leela with, by giving it adar. So adar is the respect that we are supposed to give it. But first and foremost, we are discussing how to not commit another or disrespect. And in that, we are discussing the 10 Namaparadhas, which are direct cause of disrespect to Sri Harinam. So, till now, we have discussed 6 Namaparadhas. Last time, we had concluded with the 6th Namaparadha, and today we are moving ahead on the 7th Namaparadha. In the Hari Bhakti Vilas, Shri Gopal Bhatt Goswami and Shri Sanatan Goswami, they write. The seventh naam aparadha is as follows. Namno baladiyasya hi papa buddhir na vidyate tasya yamair hi shuddhi. So, namno balat, on the strength of naam, yasya, someone has papa buddhi, an inclination to commit forbidden acts, then na vidyate, there is no purification, na shuddhi, tasya yamair, even through multiple yamas. Yamas has been translated as disciplinary principles or yamarajas. So for somebody who has an inclination to commit forbidden acts or papa, papa refers to forbidden acts, acts which are prohibited by Shastra for our particular varna, our particular ashram. That is called as papa. So all these forbidden acts, if we commit on the strength of naam, there is no purification even through multiple yamas. By multiple atonements, disciplinary principles, or yama also means yamaraja. So this is what the seventh naam aparadha says. There are many individuals who think that I will chant Bhagwan's naam, and by chanting Bhagwan's naam, I will be able to mitigate all the new papa karma or all the new forbidden acts that I am committing. So as soon as one thinks of this, immediately they become implicated in the Namaprad, because they are using Shri Hari Naam as a license for committing paap karma. In the commentary, Shri Sanatan Goswami says, Namno balat, on the strength of naam, which means nama grahanena, by uttering naam, papa kshayo bhavet, my papa, my sinful activity, my sinful reactions will be destroyed. Iti namnam prabhava jnanena, by knowing this effect of harinam, pape buddhirapi kim punah pravritti. In English, when we have translated Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, do you remember how this offense is in English?
To commit sins on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord.
Yeah, to commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. But if we notice carefully, the verse says papa buddhi, to even think of committing sins on the strength of chanting Harinam. So Shri Sanatan Goswami says pape buddhirapi, even to have that buddhi or even to have that mindset, inclination towards committing sins. Kim punaha, what then to speak of pravritti, actually committing them. So even having an inclination towards committing papa on the strength of nama is considered to be an aparadha. This is the translation. By uttering Bhagwan's naam, the destruction of papa karma or sinful reactions occurs. Knowing this effectiveness of naam and then having even a mental inclination towards committing paap is an aparadha. What then to speak of actually engaging in committing paap on the strength of naam? So what we have learnt in English is to commit sins, to actually go ahead and engage in committing sins. And what the original Sanskrit is telling us is not only that, to even think of committing is falling in the category of aparadha, papa buddhir. So this is what Shri Sanatan Goswami clarifies in the commentary to this particular verse. Now, somebody may say, when this is a very big loss. We heard that bhakti is all merciful and we will destroy all our sinful karma and the reactions by performing bhakti, and as soon as we chant naam, immediately I will think that it will burn away our newly performed sinful activities. So as soon as that happens, we will become implicated in an aparadha. So somebody may say, I want to commit paap, And Harinam, I am not able to use Harinam in order to get rid of the reaction. So Dhāmeśvara Mahaprabhu, better than chanting Harinam, then is to perform other limbs of bhakti. Because if I perform other limbs of bhakti, at least there is no aparadha in them, right? The 10 aparadhas are related to whom? Dhāmeśvara Mahaprabhu.
Harinam.
But there are so many other limbs of bhakti. For example, in one of the limbs is clapping your hands in front of the deity while dancing. So if I, there is a verse, very nice verse in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, which says, Nrityatam Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam Talika Vadanair Uddiyante Sharirastha Sarve Pataka Pakshina. Nrityatam, for those who are dancing, Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam, in front of the Lord of Shri. Shri means Lakshmi or Shri means Radharani. And how they are dancing? Talika Vadanair. Bhrisham, with profuse bhrisham, clapping of hands. What happens? Uddiyante sharirastha. Sarve pataka pakshina. All the bird-like sinful reactions sitting in the body. Body means subtle body. They fly away immediately. So Dhāmeśvara Mahaprabhu, now, if I think that, I'll commit sinful activities, and next day I'll go to the temple and I'll clap away all my sinful reactions. Now, is there a Namaprad?
I would say you haven't understood what bhakti is really about, because it's about developing a relationship with God. And if you're still trying to find a way through your papa buddhi to commit sins and get away with it, you haven't really understood that relationship, and you won't advance very far.
It's okay, I'll advance in multiple lifetimes, but I want a license to commit sinful activities. And, clapping in front of the Lord seems like an easy way to, it's like, perform sinful activities throughout the week, and on weekends go to the temple and clap away all your sinful reactions. That's all. That's all I want in my life. So what do you think?
Well, what makes you think that sinful activities are good for you?
I am inclined towards them. That is why I wish to come. See, I have a very good tool in my hand now, that is bhakti. And somebody told me in a Bhagavatam class that if you clap in front of the Lord and while dancing, all your sinful reactions will fly away like birds. Now I noted down the verse and I memorized the verse. Nrityatam Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam Talika Vadanair Bhrisham Uddiyante Sharirastha Sarve Pataka Pakshina. Now I memorized the verse. Now I know what is the glory of clapping in front of Bhagwan. So I should be able to use this verse, because, if I, one side, if I do this on the strength of Harinam, then you are saying I will fall into an aparadha. So now at least I am not doing it on the strength of Harinam. So at least now you should allow me. Is that okay?
No, because Krishna is not different from his name. So you're doing essentially the same thing.
Oh, Krishna. See how these Hare Krishnas are. They don't allow any window of opportunity. At least once you could have said yes, Dhāmeśvara Mahaprabhu. But no. So, dear devotees, the acharyas, they know that somebody may try to exploit this loophole and may try to take advantage of it. Therefore, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the Madhurya Kadambini says something about this. Namno balad yasya hi papa buddhi iti tatra naam iti upalakshanam bhakti matrasyaiva upashamakasya. Now, Dhāmeśvara Mahaprabhu, you know what is upalakshan? Can you tell me what is upalakshan? Do you remember?
I don't remember the technical phrase, but what it means is when you indicate a whole list by just mentioning the first item.
Yes, wonderful. So by principle of extension, upalakshan or metonymy, He says in the verse, Namno balad yasya, the term naam is an upalaksana. So it not only includes naam, it says all acts of bhakti that destroy paap. So if there is any act of bhakti which is spoken of in Shastra that destroys sinful reactions, that is also included in the term naam as upalakshana. So it means that if I commit sinful activities and then I think that on the strength of any act of bhakti, I will get rid of them. So that is considered to be a Namaparadha. So even thinking that I'll clap away all my sins, will also by the principle of upalakshana, metonymy, or by principle of extension, will become a Namaparadha. So this is the clear opinion given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And not only, somebody may say, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, usually he is very merciful and lenient, but here he seems to have restricted us severely. So he also has gotten this from his previous Acharya. And who is the previous Acharya who said the same thing? So it was originally Srila Jiva Goswami, who in the Bhakti Sandarbha says, Hari Bhakti Balenapi Tat Pravrittab Aparadha Patacha. One should know that this offense applies not only when committing paap on the strength of Harinam, but also on committing such paap on the strength of any limb of bhakti. So this originally came from the Bhakti Sandarbha, Anuchhed 172. And Srila Jiva Goswami in this section is speaking about this aparadha, Namno Balad. So he is saying that Hari Bhakti Balena, on the strength of any sort of Hari Bhakti, then if Tat Pravritta, if one engages in or even thinks of engaging in paap karma, aparadha patacha. So then aparadha apatti, then this aparadha will again start applying. So this is what the previous acharyas have said. So dear devotees, there are no loopholes here, which means that one is not supposed to commit any paap karma, any forbidden activities on the strength of chanting Harinam. Now, Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, please tell me, what is paap? Because, some devotees may think that, let's say, if I go to Govinda's every day and if I eat nicely, then I am committing some sort of a sinful activity. So how do we define paap? Can you tell me what is paap exactly?
That's a difficult question, Prabhu. We could probably take two routes. One would be theological and one would be scriptural. I imagine you want to take the scriptural route of whatever the Vedas say is sinful, especially according to your Svadharma.
So I want to distinguish between two terms, between the term bhoga and the term paap. Bhoga is sense enjoyment, and paapa is sinful activity. Now I will ask you questions and you please give me an answer whether it is bhoga or paap. All right. A sannyasi is supposed to beg from 3 or 5 houses every day, not more than that. A sannyasi ends up begging on a particular day from 10 houses. Is he doing bhoga or paap?
Bhoga.
Bhoga. Because begging is allowed for him. He overdid it. This is bhoga. Achha. Now, another question. A sannyasi is supposed to beg from 3 or 5 houses, but he ends up stealing from a store. This is bhoga or paap?
Paap.
So I am giving an example of what differentiates between bhoga and paap. Now, let's come to a householder. Sometimes a householder may feel affected by lust, and then they may approach their spouse in order to get rid of that lust. Are they engaging in bhoga or paap?
Bhoga.
A householder is affected by lust. They start looking outside their marriage and flirting with somebody else's spouse. This is bhoga or paap?
Paap.
Yeah. So dear devotees, we have to differentiate between what is bhoga and what is paap. Because sometimes devotees forget this subtle difference between these two. What is allowed for us according to our varna and ashram, if we overdo it, it is called bhoga. But what is absolutely forbidden for us according to our varna and ashram, if we engage in that, it is called paap. So the verse says, namno balat yasya hi bhoga buddhi or namno balat yasya hi papa buddhi. What does the verse say, Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu?
Papa buddhi.
Yeah. So if somebody thinks that right now I have a tendency to enjoy more than my, what is prescribed for me, but by chanting Harinam, I will purify my tendency of bhoga. Is that an aparadha?
No.
No. But if one thinks that I will commit forbidden activities, that which is absolutely forbidden for me, and then I will cleanse myself by chanting Harinam, that is namno balat yasya hi papa buddhi. And then whether you try to cleanse it by Harinam or by any limb of bhakti, the Namaparadha will apply according to our previous acharyas. So this is the difference between bhoga and paap. Because in the 11th canto, there are verses by Bhagavan Shri Krishna, where Krishna is saying about his devotee who is engaged in bhoga. And I will show one such verse to all of you. This is from 11th canto, 14th chapter, verse number 18. Krishna says, Badhyamanopi madbhakto vishayairajitendriyah prayah pragalbhaya bhaktya vishayairna abhibhuyate. Badhyamanopi madbhakto. Even if my devotee is somehow bound by, somehow helplessly attached to vishayair, to sense enjoyment, ajitendriya, he has not conquered his senses. Prayah, but in most cases, pragalbhaya bhaktya, because of his unflinching bhakti, vishayair na abhibhuyate, he is not defeated by sense gratification. So Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, kindly read the translation.
My dear Uddhava, if my devotee has not fully conquered his senses, he may be harassed by material desires, but because of his unflinching devotion for me, he will not be defeated by sense gratification.
So Prabhu, this is speaking about bhoga or paap?
Bhoga.
So that is what it is. Because in this verse, Krishna is saying, by his unflinching devotion. So that devotee is supposed to continue his devotional service nicely. So verses like these don't end up as Namaparadha. But if we commit paap, that which is absolutely forbidden for us, that, becomes a Namaparadha. And if we try to think that, we will eradicate it through execution of Krishna Bhakti, that becomes a Namaparadha. Now we have put it in the proper context. Now that we understand the difference between bhog and paap, now we know what is the specific area of application of this aparadha. All right. Now, our aparadha is limited to paap only. It is not extending to bhoga. If we extend it to bhoga, there will be the fault of ati vyapti, over application. So let us not, fall into the trap of over application. Our aparadha is limited only to paap, forbidden activities. And for this reason, I am not translating paap as sin. Because sometimes, devotees say, it is a sin to eat too many gulab jamuns. So therefore, I am translating it as, I'm keeping paap as forbidden activities, because forbidden means absolutely forbidden for you in the Vedas. There's a reason why I'm translating like this. Otherwise, I could have written, to commit sins. But I wanted to make this subtle differentiation between bhoga and paap, which we have done. Now, what about Krishna's words? Somebody may say, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has given a very nice verse. And this verse is often used as a defense, for people, devotees who have committed paap. What are Krishna's words? Api chet suduracharo bhajate mamananya bhag sadhureva samantavyah samyag vyavasito hi saha. So Dhāmeśvara Prabhu, kindly read what Krishna says.
Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination.
Well, even if one commits the most abominable action, Prabhuji, sudurachar, but if he is my devotee, he is saintly. So Prabhu, Krishna is opening the window here. So I can be a sudurachari, I can commit a paap, but if I am engaged in bhakti, then what is the problem?
You haven't said it yet, but I assume that you're saying the offense is to try to be free from the reaction to your sin. But it's not an offense to perform bhakti to become free from the inclination to sin. And that's how we can take this verse.
No, let's say I want to actually commit a sin. I want to actually commit a forbidden act, paap karma. And then I say I will, because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, this verse, api chet suduracharo bhajate mamananya bhag sadhu reva. This is sadhu. He is properly situated, samyak vyavasito. So why can't I commit sinful activities and then perform bhakti? Because by performing bhakti, my paap, Krishna will say that I am a sadhu and I am properly situated.
Because Krishna says samyak vyavati so, his determination is fixed on bhakti. Your determination is fixed on performing sinful activities. So you don't have this qualification.
Oh, Krishna
You don't have
Chaitanya.
the sincerity.
Oh, Krishna Chaitanya. See how these Hare Krishnas are. And they always pick out the Sanskrit words and then they lay a trap so that we can't commit paap karma. So, very good line of thought. Srila Jiva Goswami takes up a similar line of thought in the Bhakti Sandarbha. In discussion of this Namaparadha, he says, api chet su durachara iti tu tad anadara dosha para eva na tu duracharata vidhana paraha. Now the verse api chet su durachara, Jiva Goswami says, is meant exclusively for highlighting the fault of criticizing a one-pointed sadhu who is free of all previous sinful tendencies. What is the purpose of the verse? Why did Krishna say that verse? The intention of Krishna was to allow sinful activities, or the intention of Krishna was to disallow criticism of a sadhu? What was Krishna's intention in speaking the verse? Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, please tell us.
To protect the devotees.
Obviously. So, the verse is meant exclusively, Jiva Goswami says, eva, for highlighting the fault of critiquing a one-pointed sadhu who is free of previous sinful tendencies. Natu, it is not meant to encourage or justify the commitment of new abominable acts by anyone. And somebody may say, Shri Jiva Goswami, this is your interpretation. Why should we believe your interpretation? So, Shri Jiva Goswami says, Kshipram bhavati dharmatma. Just see the immediate next verse. Kshipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat chantim nigacchati. He attains lasting peace only after becoming a dharmatma. Which means only when he becomes a saintly soul free of all past abominable tendencies, then only he becomes shanta. Till that time, he will still be subject, till he has not fully become free of previous tendencies, he will not be called a dharmatma. So these verses are for somebody who has become a dharmatma. somebody who has given up all previous sinful tendencies. And if we are critiquing them for past sinful tendencies, then the verse are acting as prohibitions. Don't critique a person who has completely given up all past tendencies. Don't critique such a person. These verses cannot be used as justification for committing new, sinful, abominable activities. So Sri Jiva Goswami puts this verse in correct perspective, because many times this verse is misused. Oh, this devotee, you should forgive him because apichet suduracharo bhajate mam ananya bhag. Acha, has that particular devotee become completely free of his previous tendencies? Or is he still inclined? So as long as he is still inclined, till that time you cannot use this apichet suduracharo verse for that devotee. As long as we are still inclined towards papa karma, till that time this apichet suduracharo doesn't apply for us. So Sri Jiva Goswami is such a nice acharya who is preventing the tendency to commit papa karma from entering into the domain of bhakti. By this, bhakti, the process of bhakti will remain pristine and pure and unaffected by those people who want to take advantage of the path of bhakti to commit sinful activities on the strength of bhakti. So, Sri Jiva Goswami has correctly, given us the proper understanding of the verses. Now, we go back to the aparadha. Now, Sri Sanatana Goswami, this was the verse, Namno balad yasya hi paap buddhir na vidyate tasya yamair hi shuddhi. Sri Sanatana Goswami comments by saying yadva. Or there is another interpretation of this aparadha. Please hear this interesting interpretation. Akara prashleshena namno balam agyatva yasya pape buddhir ityartha. Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, please repeat after me what I am saying. Okay? Namno balat.
Namno balad.
Namno balat.
Namno abalad.
Yes. Namno balat. Akar prashlesha. So there can be a hidden silent akar. Akar means the syllable a. So akar prashlesh is to break it down by introducing a silent a in between. So this is called akar prashlesh. This is a grammatical principle. So Sanskrit grammar allows you to break it down in another way. So now it is not namno balat, not on the strength of nam. Namno abalat, losing the strength of nam. So what does it mean? So he says another meaning is by adding the silent a. This is not a, the English alphabet a. I have italicized it a, the silent a, to make it namno abalat. Abalat. He says namno balam agyatva, not knowing the power of harinam. A person who is inclined to committing paap is also an aparadhi. What is the meaning of this? So the meaning of this is, let's say I became a devotee and I was chanting harinam for a few years. After a few years, I started thinking, there is no potency in this harinam. I am not getting any tangible results. Better I give up this chanting and, return back to material life. So, namnah balam agyatva, forgetting that harinam is all potent. Then I give up harinam and then I again start engaging in papa karma. So this is another interpretation. Namno abalat yasya hi papa buddhihi. So forgetting the power of harinam and going back to material life and committing papa karma is also another aparadha. So this is another interpretation of namno abalat yasya hi papa buddhihi. This according to the commentary of Srila Sanatana Goswami Pad. Now, the next line says, Na vidyate tasya yamairhi shuddhi. And when I translated it, I said I took two meanings of yama. These two meanings were taken from the commentary of Sri Sanatana Goswami. He says, Tasya yamai, for such a person who is committing this aparadha, Yamaihi bahu vratadibhir ahimsadibhir dvadashabhir va. He says, for such a person who even thinks of committing paap on the strength of naam, there is no shuddhi, there is no atonement, purification, even by following various yamas. What is the meaning of yama? So he says, bahu vratadibhir. The term yama refers to executing many atonements or many vows. Or the term yama can refer to the 12 yamas. He says, ahimsadivir dvadashabhir va. There are 12 yamas. What are the 12 yamas? He says, dvadasha, 12 yamas. What are the 12 yamas? So they are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna says to Uddhav, ahimsa satyam asteyam asango hrira sanchayah astikyam brahmacharyam cha maunam sthiryam kshamabhayam. Nameshwar Mahaprabhu, kindly read the 12 yamas.
The 12 yamas are nonviolence, truthfulness, not coveting or stealing others' property, detachment, humility, freedom from possessiveness, trust in the principles of religion, brahmacharya, mauna, steadiness, forgiveness, and fearlessness.
These, these were being referred to. I will go to the previous slide. It says ahimsadibhir dvadashibhir. So 12 yamas beginning with ahimsa. So Sri Sanatan Goswami was referring to ahimsa, satyamaste. He is referring to this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. So if a person has the tendency to commit paap on the strength of Harinam, na vidyate tasya yamai, even by following multiple yamas, because yamai is plural case. So multiple yamas. Well, multiple means more than 3 or more than 3 are known as plural in Sanskrit. In English, plural begins with 2. In Sanskrit, plural begins with 3. So 3 or more than 3. Here it is 12. So yamai, by following multiple yamas, non-violence, truthfulness, all these other yamas, disciplinary rules he may follow, but he will not be purified if he has the tendency to commit paap on the strength of Shri Harinam. So this is what the verse is saying. Or yama can mean any general atonement, basically. So he also said that. And there is another meaning of yama. What is another meaning of yama? He says, yadva dharmarajai chirakalam tatkrita yatana bhogenapi iti artha. Another meaning of yama is dharmaraj, that is yamaraj. So yamaihi, multiple yamarajas. A person who even thinks of committing paap on the strength of naam cannot be purified even by various yamarajas. In other words, such a person cannot attain purification even after suffering prolonged hellish punishments inflicted by multiple yamarajas. So this is another meaning of na vidyate tasya yamair hi shuddhi. So many aspects of this one Namaparadha. So one thing we have to remember is that on the strength of any limb of bhakti, we should not have the tendency to commit papa karma. All right, that is what this is saying. Now, if we have the tendency to commit bhoga, so we are not considered as a fixed up devotee, but we should continue on the path, and we should know that by Harinam, by executing other limbs of bhakti, the tendency of bhoga will gradually go down. So committing bhoga is not the same as committing paap, but a devotee should never, ever, ever have the tendency of committing paap. I will give you an example of, Sri Jiva Goswami gives a verse in the Bhakti Sandarbha which speaks of paap. So I will give you an example of what is paap. Let me show one example of this. He says, paradara. Yeah. So there is a verse in the Bhakti Sandarbha where Sri Jiva Goswami says, paradara paradravya, that if somebody, as soon as one starts, coveting the spouse of somebody else, as soon as one starts coveting the wealth of somebody else, so that is when, that person becomes um, um, a sinful person. So this is, dear devotees, we should, one important thing is whatever is, yes, here it is. I'll share my screen with you, and this is a very nice verse. Parapatni paradravya parahimsa suyo matim na karoti puman bhupa tushyate tena keshava. This is Vishnu Puran 3.8.14. Parapatni, the spouse of somebody else. Paradravya, the resources of somebody else. Parahimsasu, and inflicting violence on somebody else. Yo matim na karoti, one who does not engage his intelligence in these things. Puman bhupat tushyate tena keshava. Bhagwan Keshava is satisfied with such a person who does not covet after the wife of others, the wealth of others, and who does not want to inflict violence upon others. So please, no committing of paap karma. This tendency should not be there within us. So let's move ahead. This was, dear devotees, aparadha number 7. And the next aparadha is aparadha number 8. The 8th Namaparadha is specified by Sri Gopal Bhatt Goswami and Sri Sanatan Goswami. Dharma vrata tyaga hutadi sarva shubha kriya samyamapi pramadaha. So do you remember Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, how this particular aparadha is translated in the English?
To consider pious activities like fire sacrifices or Vedic yajnas to be on the same level as chanting Harinam.
This is the reverse you're saying. To consider Harinam to consider chanting of the holy name to be on the same level as, to consider chanting of Harinam as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities mentioned in the Vedas, Karma Kand. This is how it is translated nowadays. So what the Sanskrit says is samyam, to equate naam with what? Dharma, to equate the chanting of Harinam with dharma, acts of worldly religiosity. Vrata, vows for worldly gains. Tyaga, acts of charity. Huta, offerings given in sacrifices. Or any auspicious ritual in general. To consider naam as equal to them is also an aparadha. Now some devotees, especially those coming from a Vedic background, sometimes they have the tendency to think, oh, I could not execute my dharma as a good son. What should I do? Some other devotee comes to him and says, oh, don't worry, chant Hare Krishna and automatically you will execute your dharma as a son. So here there is an equivalence being made between executing one's dharma and chanting Harinam. Actually, the statement that should have been made is chant Hare Krishna, which is much greater than executing all dharmas. Put Harinam above all dharmas. Don't equate it with any dharma. When somebody starts equating it with dharma, samyam, api pramada, it becomes an aparadha. So, vrata, a person is supposed to execute a specific vow. For example, Pitru Paksh is coming up. Pitru Paksh means there are 15 days in which one offers offerings to the forefathers. Somebody forgot to execute his Pitru Paksh, could not execute his vow of Pitru Paksh, forgot to satisfy the forefathers on that specific day. Oh no. Now what do I do? Well, I'll just chant Harinam. It is, as good as executing Pitru Paksh. No. Harinam is much, much, much above executing Pitru Paksh. So don't consider it samyam. Don't consider it equivalent to a vrata. Tyaga. Oh, I am a grihastha. I am supposed to give a certain percentage of charity to the temple and to needy people. Well, anyways, chanting Hare Krishna is, equivalent to giving charity. So instead of giving charity, I'll just chant Hare Krishna. Oh, no. Don't equate naam with tyag, huta similar with sacrifices, or with any auspicious ritual in general. Please do not equate Shri Harinam with that, because Shri Harinam is in a different league of its own. It is not in the league of dharma, vrata, tyaga, huta, or any of the auspicious ritualistic activities mentioned in the Vedas. So this is what it is. So, dear devotees, Harinam is much above, much beyond all these things, and therefore we should never make a comparison between Harinam and all these activities. Now, Shri Jiva Goswami says sometimes in Shastra you will find specific verses which will force you to think. And what are these verses? Because sometimes it is okay, like we should not have this tendency to equate. But what if on certain occasion Shastra itself seems to equate? I will give an example of this. Sri Jiva Goswami gives an example of this. He quotes a verse from one of the Upanishads where it seems that an equivalence is being made. So this is the verse. I will chant the verse. Vedaksharani yavanti pathitani dvijatibhi tavanti harinamani kirtitani na samshayah. This is from Narayanottara Tapaniya Upanishad. Dhāmeśvara Prabhu, kindly read the translation.
The number of syllables of the Vedas studied by a twice-born is undoubtedly equal to the names of Hari chanted audibly by him.
Oh my goodness. Now this is directly in the Upanishads. So, if a person is chanting the Vedas, this verse says that the number of syllables of Vedas that I am chanting, they are equal to the names of Hari that I am chanting. Prabhu, now this is directly in the Shastra. It seems that Shastra is, impelling us in the direction of the 8th Namaparadha. Let's say I start chanting the Vedas and keeping this in mind. Gananam tvam ganapatim mam havamahe om agnim ire purohitam devasya yajjamritvijam hotaram ratnadhatamam agni purve birrishabiridayo. My goodness, so many syllables I chanted. So those many Hari Naams I have chanted. Now tell me, Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, does this verse not establish equivalence between a Vedic activity and Harinam? Yes or no?
No, I think the purpose of this verse is to say if there were a Brahmana who is accustomed to chanting the Vedas, they were brought up that way as part of the whole culture, and then they try to become a devotee, they might say, well, how can I spend my day chanting Harinam and chanting Japa? I have to chant the Vedas. This verse is saying, don't worry about that. Just chant Harinam, and that's all you need.
But Prabhuji, every particular verse has a subject and a predicate. What is the subject and what is the predicate in this particular verse? It says that as many syllables of the Vedas I have chanted, that many Harinam I have chanted. Which means that the verse is, glorifying the chanting of Veda, syllables of Veda, by establishing its equivalence with Harinam. Now we are in a trap. Now how do we come out of it? Do you have anything more to say about this? Any other argument to give? Or
we could say that Hari's name is included in the Vedas, or that even the names of the demigods are aspects of God.
okay. So
Lower aspects.
ultimately all those are names of Hari, because ultimately his name is Sarvanam. All names belong to him. That's okay. Wonderful. So, which means that the name appears subordinate to the Vedas. That is what it seems, because the name is included in the Vedas. So by statements like these, we might fall into a confusion. So Sri Jiva Goswami says, don't worry about it. All right. Here is how this verses like these are not actually speaking about the glories of Vedas. Verses like these are actually speaking about the glories of Harinam. You might say, how? And Sri Jiva Goswami gives the answer. He says, iti atideshenapi namna eva mahatmyam ayati. He says, by the principle of atidesh, attribution of qualities of one entity on another, verses like these actually speak of the glories of Harinam. Now question may arise, what is atidesh? So atidesh, I have given a rough translation. Attribution of qualities of one entity on another. All right. Now I will explain with the help of an example. Dāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, please hear the example and please answer. If I come to you and I say, Dāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, just take this one vitamin supplement. It is equal to a full bowl of green vegetables and fruits. So it seems that I am glorifying the vitamin supplement. Isn't it so, Dāmeśvara Mahāprabhu?
It seems that way.
But the glory of the vitamin supplement is established by equating it with what?
Fruits and vegetables.
Yeah. So whose glory came first?
Fruits and vegetables.
All right. Now, let's go back to the verse. The number of syllables of Vedas studied by a twice born is undoubtedly equal to the names of Hari chanted audibly by him. So ultimately, whose glories are being specified? The glory of the syllables of Vedas is being established on the support of whose glories?
Harinam.
Obviously. So this is called Atidesh. Sri Jiva Goswami, Atidesh is actually, this comes from grammar, Vyakaran. It is one of the 6 types of Vyakaran sutras. Grammar sutras is Atidesh, where one sutra's qualities end up in another sutra. So this is, Atidesh. Taking one capsule of the supplement is as good as one bowl of fresh fruits and vegetables. So originally the glory lies with fresh fruits and vegetables. And now that glory has come to basically, one capsule of a supplement. So the original glory will always be there with Harinam. The capsule is glorious because the bowl of vegetables and fruits is glorious. So that is what is called Atidesh. And Sri Jiva Goswami says, if you want to see verses which are, giving the opposite also, you can see this. For example, he quotes Hari Bhakti Vilas. Rigvedo hi yajurvedah samvedopyatharvanah adhitastena yenoktam haririthyaksharadvayam. Harir iti aksharadvayam, a person who has uttered the 2 syllables, Hari, has studied Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda and Atharva Veda. This is Vishnu Dharmottar quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas 11th chapter, verse number 378. So it's not that the glories are only one-sided. On the other side also, you will see that anybody who has chanted the syllable name Hari has studied the 4 Vedas. So verses like these also exist. So verses like these are not in opposition to the previous verse, but it is just to show that there is variegatedness of understanding. And secondly, originally the glory lies with Harinam. That is what, Sri Jiva Goswami says, the principle of Atidesh, or the principle of attribution of qualities of one entity upon another is applicable here. Right? So, sometimes we say eating one apple is as good as visiting the doctor. The glory is in regularly visiting the doctor to get yourself checked. So that is why, that glory has come in eating the apple. So that is what it is. All right. So dear devotees, this was the 8th Namaparadha. Now 2 more remaining, which we will cover next time. And then We will also see there is an extra, whether there is an extra 11th Namaparadha hidden somewhere. And we will try to see, we'll try to complete them. Then we'll be back on our verse. Once we have avoided all the another, then we will go ahead and see how to introduce other, how to introduce love and respect towards Shri Harinam. And once we know how to introduce love and respect towards Shri Harinam, then we will be able to satisfy the condition that Shri Rupa Goswami has given us. All right, so dear devotees, with that, I'd like to pause my speech for today. Yadatra skhalitam kinchid vidvam saha purayantu tat. Yadatra saushthavam kinchit tad guroreva me nahi. Yadatra skhalitam kinchit. It is possible that I might have made some mistakes while presenting. Vidvam saha, you're all learned devotees. Purayantu tat. Please correct any mistakes. But yadatra saushthavam kinchit. If there's anything nice in the presentation, please know tad guroreva. It belongs to my Gurujanas. Me nahi, doesn't belong to me. Thank you very much, dear devotees. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hari Pārṣada Prabhu, for another really beautiful, wonderful class. It's so amazing. We've been going almost a year now and studying just 7 verses, and there hasn't been any repetition. We spent hours and hours and hours studying this text, and you just brought out new and new insights, quoting from our acharyas and our shastras. It's really amazing property. So we're so grateful to be here. And we're going to go now to questions and answers. So please try to leave time for other people. And if you have like extended questions, then you can kind of break it up into segments. Ask just a little bit now, let other people go, come back. We'll get back to you. And try to focus on the topics that we covered today, especially the Namaparadhas. And we don't want to ask any loaded questions about particular people, about particular institutions, but we want to speak in principle. So with that, we will begin with Vishwadeep Roy Prabhu.
Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji. Thank you for today's class. Like till today, I was thinking that only the karma aspect and vachik aspect only lies in the offenses. But today I understood how manasik aspect is also present in in the offenses. So my question is, like you mentioned 2 verses, which like one is that how through Atidesh we can say that glories of holy name are only said in the first verse, and second verse also it is ultimately the glory of holy name. But someone who has nishtha in Vedas more than holy name, he may give exactly our analogy but in an opposite way. He may say, okay, the second verse he will quote first, and he will say, Acha, see, here is the glory of Vedas is been proven, and the second verse also, like you have mentioned, he may say like this. So what should we do? How should we understand that perspective?
See, the thing is, your question is that today we understood the principle of Atidesh. Now somebody who has Shraddha in the Vedas, he may use the same principle and say that whatever verses are saying that chanting Harinam is, somebody who has chanted Harinam has recited the 4 Vedas, is actually, by principle of Atidesh, glorifying the Vedas, glorifying the recitation of Vedas. But if he makes such a statement, then we will ask him a question. Can everybody chant the 4 Vedas? Yes or no?
No.
Can everybody chant Harinam?
Yes.
So you cannot apply Atidesh, na? Here. There will be many problems if you try to apply Atidesh in this situation. All right. The person who is Veda Nishtha, who is dedicated to the Vedas, they will never say that everybody can chant Vedas. They know that chanting Vedas requires certain qualification. You have to be twice born. So Atidesh If they try to apply, they will fall into a big trap themselves. All right, so that satisfies your query. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Prabhuji, I had a question that came up in the class. You were saying that it's not an offense to, enjoy a little bit too much within the realm of what's allowed, but going outside that is sinful. And if you think, oh, well, I'll be purified of my sinful activities by taking shelter of bhakti, that's an offense. I assumed you meant if someone thinks I'll be free from the results of my sinful activities and I can keep on doing them, but that doesn't apply to someone who, say, comes from a rough background, they have a drug addiction, or they see prostitutes or whatever, but they're trying to become free from those activities, and they take shelter of bhakti. Such a person would not be an offender.
Somebody
Is that right?
somebody who's come from that background, what is their varna and ashram, and what does Shastra say for them? First question is this.
I guess they're anashrami.
Yes. So Shastra does not have any specific rules for them, or, as it is often said that Ashuddha Shudra Kalpahi. Many people come from a background which is Shudra or below Shudra, because the specific background that you are speaking of is not the background of a person who is belonging to, the higher varnas. This person has come from a background which is belonging to a lower varna. So Shastra does not have much expectations from them. But as soon as he has come in contact with the devotees, he should understand that hunting after other women is paap. Stealing somebody else's wealth and property is paap. These are general paap for everybody. So he cannot justify prostitution, on saying that I came from a rough background. He cannot justify stealing, saying that. Where is his sadhutva? Where is his sadhuness if he starts justifying like this? Sadhuness is in saying that although I came from this background, henceforth I will not commit these activities. Now, at some point of time, he may become very weak in his heart. And then he may, accidentally or once in a while, he may end up committing a paap karma. That is because of his previous nature. Then there are remedies specified by Sri Jiva Goswami. I had spoken of Arop Siddha Bhakti. Arop Siddha Bhakti means the tendency to, the tendency which I have to, the love which I have towards these activities, may that same love and attraction be towards you. But this is to be, Arop Siddha Bhakti is to be used only in cases when one has become like almost helpless and there is no other way out. And it is not to be used as a license. Otherwise, it becomes Sakaitava Arop Siddha Bhakti. Arop Siddha Bhakti with cheating tendency. It is very important that all devotees should understand that cheating tendency should be kept out of the domain of bhakti, no matter which background they have come from. Because what happens as soon as we allow them, okay, this is allowed for you, they will make a license out of it and they will never come out of it. So even if somebody has come from a rough background, the basic paap karma, that is hunting after other women, stealing somebody else's wealth, all these things which I mentioned in the verse today, parab patni, parad dravya, somebody else's wife, somebody else's wealth, no. Such a person, okay, if it is possible, and if he can peacefully stay without violence in one marriage, that is okay. Okay, if such a person can peacefully stay in one marriage, that is okay. So, in that marriage, he may have tendency for bhoga, extended sense enjoyment. But that is not counted as paap. That is counted as bhoga. So that is what is. So that person should try to situate himself in a peaceful position where he does not commit paap karma. But where, bhoga may be high, but paap does not exist. So every person who wants to become a sadhu should, as soon as possible, situate themselves in a position of a sadhu. That is what that is sincerity. So I hope that satisfies your query.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for clarifying. Next we have Tanvi Desai.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much for the wonderful class. Prabhuji, so you said about the shloka of Dharma Vrata Hutadi Agni. So in that, let me first clear my understanding that you said that if we say like, I'm not able to do this Vrata or do this Dharma, so I will chant and thus it will happen. So it should not be done. Is it right?
Yeah. For example,
Yeah.
I could not study for my exams. I was supposed to study. So okay, let me chant Hare Krishna. If there's any fault, Krishna will take care of it. But you are not
Yes.
supposed to use Harinam for all these things, for executing your duties, for, doing all. So the Dharma, Vrata, Tyaga, Hutadi, Sarva, Shubha, Kriya, Samyam. Whatever it is, Harinam is supposed to be kept separate from this. Harinam is much above all of this. I could not execute this Dharma, so I will chant Harinam instead. Because it will give me equal fruit. Not like that. Harinam, the main purpose of chanting Harinam is to get Krishna Prem. Not Harinam is not like that filler for incomplete acts. Sometimes we put
Yeah.
potatoes as fillers in a sabji because we have less sabji. So instead of, buying more sabji, we put potatoes as fillers in a particular sabji. So it's Harinam is not supposed to be used like that. As filler for dharma, vrata or tyaga, which we could not execute. So that understanding we should have.
So my question was that because like this Kali Yuga is there, so we have the inability, like for example in Grihastha we cannot do so many fire sacrifices and they may not be pure. So like Krishna says like Yajnanam Japa Yajñosmi. So how to understand this? Like I'm talking about fire sacrifice, but in general also like dharma also we say, Sharirik dharma. We can't follow each and every step. So how should we understand that?
So we cannot follow each and every step. So is Harinam a replacement for them or is Harinam much above them?
About that.
So if our understanding is that Harinam will do not only that, but it is much above them, then we are properly situated. But if our understanding is merely restricted to Harinam is just a replacement for them, then we are considering Harinam as equal to all these activities, right?
Yes.
So that is what it is. So although we should not expect Harinam to do lower tasks for us. Harinam will do much more, not only that, but much more than that. But we should not expect Harinam to, just fill these small gaps. Harinam is much more higher than that. And we should not trivialize the potency of Harinam to, just as being a filler for Dharma, Vrata, Tyaga, etc. So that sort of thought is, considered to be an aparadha. I hope that is understood.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Next we have Mohit Deshmukh.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Am I audible?
Yeah.
So Prabhuji, my question was, first of all, thank you so much for this wonderful katha. So my question was, sometimes we end up committing, not committing, but gratifying our senses due to our past samskaras. So, or sometimes willingly, knowing that it is not going to help in our bhajan or in the service of Guru and Krishna. And then our consciousness, due to that gratifying our senses, our consciousness gets contaminated. And if we subtly think that we will find Harinam, hear Krishna Katha, and can clean our consciousness, and this cycle goes on. We contaminate our consciousness and then use Harinam, Hari Katha, Krishna Katha to clean our chitta, consciousness. So is this a bhoga? This is in bhoga category, right? Or in the like paap category? Then next question is, then how do we come out of it? And is it not that we are using Harinam as a cleaner? And also, can we offer these acts also to Krishna? As there is one verse, right? Yat kritam yat karishyami yat karomi janardana tubhyameva kritam sarvam tvameva phala bhukbhave. So can we offer such acts which like bhoga also to Krishna due to like sometimes we commit like gratify our senses due to our past samskaras? Can we offer that? And is there any verse like And one
We
more
can
thing
do
that
3 questions for now. We can
yes,
only
yes,
remember so
Prabhu.
many.
Sorry, sorry. Hare Krishna.
All right. So sometimes we gratify our senses. So gratify our senses can have any meaning. Like eating one sweet is also gratifying your senses. And hunting after somebody else's wife is also gratifying your senses. So that you have not specified what is the exact.
Not Prabhuji, that gratifying senses is not in the paap section. Like,
Okay, so you now you have clarified. It is not, you are not speaking of paap. You are
yes.
speaking of,
Bhog.
bhog. If you are speaking of bhog, basically, then there was arop siddha bhakti, which was clearly mentioned. If the tendency is to perform bhog, and Shri, I also quoted a verse today, Badhyamanopi mad bhakto vishaye rajitendri. I quoted a verse from the 11th canto in today's presentation, where Krishna himself says that such a devotee should continue to execute one-pointed bhakti and he will not be defeated by sense gratification. He will not be defeated by bhoga. So a devotee who is still attached to bhoga should continue to execute one-pointed bhakti. And Sri Jiva Goswami in his Bhakti Sandarbh has given the path of Arop Siddha Bhakti. Arop Siddha Bhakti means there were verses given, and in previous sessions of Upadeshamritam, I had covered this. I think many sessions ago I had
Itaha
covered.
Purvam also.
Yeah. So, Mama Sukrite Dushkrite Yad Raga Samanyam Tat Sarvato Bhavena Bhagavad Vishayam Eva Bhavatu. So, Sukarmani Dushkarmani. In all the, good and bad acts also. Forget about bhoga. Even if I have some inclination towards dushkarma, towards papa, but if I, whatever attachment I have, may all that attachment be transferred to the Supreme Lord. So this Arop Siddha Bhakti was mentioned there previously, in previous classes. So a devotee can take shelter of that. But Arop Siddha Bhakti is again of two types, Sakaitava, Akaitava.
Okay.
Are you going to make a license of bhoga out of Arop Siddha Bhakti? Or are you
No,
only going to use it, when you genuinely need it? So that is individual devotee to devotee. And you cannot make a sadhana chart out of it, bhoga chart out of it. This much I will do every day. So that's individual. That's up to your sincerity. All right.
It may convert into cheating tendencies.
It may,
It may.
if you try to make a license out of it. Right. So better not to go in that direction. Better to, bhoga only when the body and the mind harass us beyond a certain point. Otherwise, say no. That is what it is. I hope you would understand.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Right.
Next we have Madhav Tripati Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanvat Pranam. Thank you so much for this wonderful class, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, my question is, you mentioned that Sanatana Goswami also says that naam no balat yasya papai, but there also means that it also means naam no abalat. So if we give up the shelter of the holy name and we thinking that the holy name is not powerful enough and we go away from the shelter of the holy name, so that is also this aparadha. And and you also equated that this naam doesn't only mean naam, it also means other activities of bhakti. So like in terms of in the Ajamil's case, he was performing some activities of devotional service prior to his getting contaminated, and he left those and he went over to the sinful life. So is that also included in that? And if yes, then how did he get purified and got rid of this offense just by chanting Namabhas?
Ajamil was a Brahmana. He was not initiated as a Vaishnava. Ajamil was a Brahmana. It is very clearly mentioned. Ajamil was a Ved Pathi Brahman. So he was chanting the Vedas. He was a Brahmana. And then, although being a Brahmana, although having a wife, a devoted wife, he got attracted to paap karma. And although he got attracted to paap karma, at the end of his life, he ended up chanting the name of his son as Namabhas. So my question is, was Ajamil initiated in a Vaishnava lineage? Yes or no?
I don't know, Prabhuji.
I don't know. No. What is mentioned in the Bhagavatam? I am asking you.
Not mentioned. Not mentioned.
Obviously. So he was initiated as a Brahmana. Basically, he was chanting the Vedas. The verse, the aparadha is speaking about somebody who's initiated into Harinam and then after some time gives up faith on Harinam. And then is all of this mentioned in the case of Ajamil? No. It's not mentioned that he was chanting Harinam, then he gave up faith on Harinam, and then if he gave up faith on Harinam, why did he name his son Narayan? I hope you are able to understand. So this, it is not mentioned like that about Ajamil. Ajamil's case is different, and this, what you are speaking about, is a different case. All right?
Yes.
This is
Yes.
the answer to your query.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Next we have Jai Dwarka Prabhu.
Oh, wonderful. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Pranam, Prabhuji. Once again, thank you so much for such an enlightening session on with and offenses.
I hope
Prabhuji,
your
actually, my question.
I hope your good qualities with by Atidesh come to me. All right, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji, actually, my question was from that verse of Bhagavad Gita where you explained, quoting the commentary of Srila Goswami, about Shipram Bhavati Dharmatma. So, Prabhuji, this verse says that that person will soon become a Dharmatma.
Yes.
So, by this understanding, automatically it says that the verse previous to it is talking about the person who has not yet become a Dharmatma.
Okay, so the thing is, the previous verse, it says api chet suduracharo bhajate mam. In what way? Ananya bhav.
Ananya bhav.
Sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hi. Now, by the practice of bhakti, his previous tendencies will automatically be destroyed and he will very quickly become a dharmatma. But these set of verses, if you start applying to a person who is not sincerely practicing bhakti, but instead of just pretending to be a devotee and continuing his paap karma, so can these verses be applied to such a devotee?
No, Prabhuji.
It cannot be applied. Shipram bhavati dharmatma. He quickly becomes a dharmatma. How does he become? Because past he has committed some negative activity. That reaction of that negative activity is there. So till the time his reaction is not destroyed, he is not being called a dharmatma. But by his practice of one-pointed bhakti, very quickly he will become dharmatma. And the seed of committing that sinful activity will also be destroyed.
Okay. So can we call a sincere devotee who is practicing and at times he engages accidentally either in paap karma or bhog karma accidentally? So can we say that devotee is covered in that verse?
A devotee who accidentally, there is a
Accidentally, yes.
if you speak about the case of accidentally, then there is a separate verse only in the Bhagavatam which justifies accidental committing of sinful accidental committing of forbidden activities. I'll share my screen with you and you can note down this verse number. This is 11.5.42. Swapadamoolam bhajatah priyasya त्यक्तान्य भावस्य हरिः परेशः विकर्म यच्चोत्पिततं पतितं कथंचित् धुनोति सर्वं हृदि सन्निविष्टः. So Prabhu, you only read the translation.
Yes, Prabhuji. One who has thus given up all other engagements and has taken full shelter at the lotus feet of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is very dear to the Lord. Indeed, if such a surrendered soul accidentally commits some sinful activity, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated within everyone's heart, immediately takes away the reaction of such sin.
Okay. So Kshipram, very quickly, Kshipram means immediately. He becomes a dharmatma. Because he is now Ananya. Ananya means he is one-pointed. Na? So Prabhu, in those verses of Bhagavad Gita, where you said Kshipram means some time is there. My question is, how much time?
Immediately.
Oh, wonderful. Now you understood. In Shastra, there is a Nyaya. The Nyaya is Sahasra Kamala Dala Vedhana Nyaya. If you want to pierce one lotus petal with a needle, does it happen immediately or after some time?
Immediately.
If you want to pierce 1,000 lotus petals with a needle, that also happens immediately or after many hours?
After 1 year.
What? Prabhu, they are lotus petals. I am not speaking about piercing wood. If you put 100 lotus petals together.
Yes. So after a few minutes, we can say.
No,
1 minute to 2 minutes.
no, you can immediately draw a pin through 100 lotus petals. Lotus petal is the softest thing. Right?
Yes.
Whether it is 1 or 100, Kshipram Bhavati Dharmatma. As long as he has taken full shelter, and as long as the tendency has been wiped out from his heart, so from his past reaction, he will become purified. Kshipram, very quickly. That is, but the tendency to commit should have gone away, vanished away completely. Which means vicious tendency should no longer be present in him. And as long as the vicious tendency to commit paap is present, till that time a person will not fit in the ambit of those two verses.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I got. Yes. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Next we have Omkar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Yeah, Mahāprabhu.
Yes, sure. Prabhuji, I had a doubt about this point that there are some cases where the bhoga becomes papa. For example, for a devotee, I would like to give these three cases. Could you explain? The first case is eating of onion garlic, which is to be avoided by a dvija. But let's say a devotee, he is used to eating, or he wants to, like, he likes to eat. So he may start eating it, not accidentally, but with the intention, maybe not many number of times, but a small number of times. Then the second case is like if a devotee in a grihastha he does his three sangha on the ekadashi night. And the third case I would ask you about like a sannyasi who changes his ashram to a grihastha ashram due to some complications, which is not allowed by dharma shastras. So in these three cases, how would we see this verse?
Which verse?
About the point that the bhoga, like in this verse, the papa buddhi is avoided. But the point is here, it seems that the bhoga is basically turning into papa. Because the point, like he can eat, like a person, if he wants to eat something, that's fine. But if an initiated or a dvija starts eating onion garlic
Then he is,
on purpose,
so he's committing an activity which is forbidden for him. And the tendency is also there in him. So why will it be in the ambit of bhoga? It is clearly moving in the ambit of paap, na?
okay. So for the other two cases also this will apply?
Obviously,
the,
a sannyasi giving up his ashram is not bhoga, it is paap. So,
Okay.
so that is, these are all sannyasi giving up his ashram is not considered as bhoga. Sannyasi returning back to previous ashram is considered to be paap karma. Is not supposed to do that. Bhoga, I told you what is the window of bhoga. What is allowed for you in your varna and ashram if you extend it beyond that. That is called bhoga. Is this bhoga or is this paap?
This will be clearly pap.
Obviously. Is any amount of onion and garlic allowed for a twice born?
No, no amount.
So then the zero amount is allowed. So how can it ever fall in the category of bhoga? Obviously. Accidentally if you eat, by mistake if somebody eats twice born, then there are remedies for that. Right?
Yes, true. But our attitude should not be judgmental towards such person.
No, it's what do we have to do about it? Somebody who committed it he has to deal with it. I am nobody to judge such a person. Unless I am
Yes.
somebody's guru, I don't have any business trying to correct somebody. Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Done it for now.
Next we have Kamniya Krishna Prabhu.
Very good. Pranams.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandan Paham to you, Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu and all the Vaishnavas. Yet another astonishing class from you, Prabhuji. Like we are overwhelmed with this lot of information that Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu mentioned initially. That every time new. So Prabhuji, since we have been talking about these different aparadhas, and each aparadha you have covered so insightfully, I would say, that it has a different sections which within what each aparadha. But so now what I'm about is that how we measure them in a regular basis as we understand each and everyone in that so insightfully, and how we can avoid that, basically. Because every day when we are doing Harinam, okay, we just read the Namapradha, blah, 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 okay, then done, and then we start chanting. But going to such a detailed level and how we can do that regularly, and then how we can avoid not doing that inside stuff. So if you can answer that would be great. Thank you so much.
All right. So, see, Prabhu, the thing is, the 10 Namaparadhas and the details, it's an elaborate discussion. Now, when you are in practice, when you are doing it, at that time, there is something called as muscle memory. Muscle memory means, it becomes an internalized part of your existence. Let me tell you something. For example, when you first learned how to ride a bicycle, there are, or when you first learned how to drive a car, so there were 100 rules which were taught to you. Now, every time you sit in the car, do you again repeat all the rules, or have you internalized them and made a part of your muscle memory? Tell me, what have you done?
The second, memorize. Yeah.
Internalized them. It has become part. So as soon as your car is on a signal and you're allowed to turn left, or I forget, in the US you're allowed to turn left or something like that. You can, even if the signal is red, you're allowed to take a left or right turn, something like that. So muscle memory tells you that this is what it is, basically. So there's something called as muscle memory even in the field of bhakti, that automatically that what should be done, what should not be done. For example, we sometimes end up touching, accidentally we end up touching a book with our feet. Muscle memory tells us, oh, in our childhood it was taught that this is not good. Every morning we don't repeat all the set of rules and regulations that our parents gave us. So after some time, you're supposed to internalize them and make it a part of the muscle memory of your brain. And then automatically you will avoid all these things. Right?
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Next we have Mihika.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you very much for the class. Prabhuji, my question is that, like you explained in the class, that if we commit a namaprad, that we commit a namaprad if we commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name. So my question is that before I've committed an accidental mistake or like sinned and then I chanted the holy name, so then did I commit a namaprad causing my devotional service not to progress?
I didn't understand you. Previously, if you have committed some paap, then what?
And then I chanted the holy name because I didn't know the Namaprad. So did I commit a Namaprad by like trying to dismiss my sin on the strength of the holy name?
If you have done it previously, then at whatever time you have done it with the intention of removing papa karma, it is a namaprad. Whatever time you have done it. But do not worry, there are remedies to Namaparadhas. But just because there are remedies, it doesn't mean that we will purposely commit Namaparadhas. Now that you know, henceforth we should not commit. So that is what it is.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Next we have Bhakti Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you for everything. My question, and maybe it's not the purview of the class, and Prabhuji, please, tell me that I can just message you privately on this, but it's its relation with the dharma. So as a grahastha, we have our dharma, we have duties. In any life, we have our duties. As a brahmachari, as a student, as a grahastha, we have duties to perform. And trying to neglect our duties because we are engaged in devotional service. And is it justified? From what I understand from today's, that one verse that you mentioned about holy name is above the dharma. I don't remember the exact shloka, Prabhuji, but something you mentioned in the relation of the holy name and dharma. So my question is basically in relation to dharma, and not just the holy name, but any limb of devotional service. Is it justified that you be engaged in devotional service and you neglect your dharma? So as a grahasthi, I neglect cooking in the house, taking care of children as a mother. Is that all nullified because I'm engaged in doing devotional service? Again, if this is not the purview of the class, please do not answer. And I can message you separately.
All right. So the query is that since Harinam is above all dharma, vrata, tyaga, it gives, a result much higher than all these. Can Harinam be used to discount one's dharma? To, not follow one's dharma as a grihastha, etc. So the answer is there are two types of people who give up their dharma. First is the pretender. Pretender means this person internally has material desires, and internally does not have much faith in bhakti, but wants to use bhakti as a tool to escape. So this person is definitely, is a person who has material desires, but still uses bhakti as an excuse to escape. That person will be called as a mithyachar. And in Bhagavad Gita only says this thing. But then there is the person who has genuinely become detached from all householder life, genuinely mentally lost interest in all aspects of householder life. For the person who has genuinely lost all respect, not respect, genuinely lost all inclination for householder life, not respect, but all tendency, towards householder life. Shri Krishna has a verse in the 11th canto for this. I will specify the verse. This is 11th canto, chapter number 20, and the verse number is 9th. I am sharing my screen. Tavat karmani purvita na nirvidyeta yavata mat katha shravanadau va shraddha yavan na jayate. So Mataji, Bhakti Mataji, you only, read the translation of this particular verse. Unmuted? No, okay. Yeah, Bhakti Mataji, can you read the translation for this particular verse?
Yes, I'm unmuted now. Thank you. As long as one is not satiated by fruitive activity and has not awakened his taste for devotional service by Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.23, one has to act according to the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions.
Right. So, as long as nirvidyeta, as long as one has not genuinely developed full detachment, and as long as one has not developed full faith in Krishna Katha, full faith in Bhagavad Bhakti. Till that time, tavat karmani kurvita. One is supposed to act according to one's varna and ashram. And anybody who prematurely tries to escape his renunciation in the Bhagavad Gita is specified to be in the mode of passion. In Bhagavad Gita, there is tyag in the three modes defined. And tyag, which is in the mode of passion, renunciation, which is in the mode of passion, is that which is done out of basically, because of being afraid of, or because of being afraid of these duties.
Inconvenience.
Yeah, inconveniences. Yeah. So this is not considered to be a very good way of renouncing. I will share this verse from Bhagavad Gita also. This is 18.8. Dukkham ityeva yat karma kaya klesha bhayat tyajet sakritva rajasam tyagam naiva tyaga phalam labhet. Anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome or out of fear of bodily discomfort is said to have renounced in the mode of passion. Such action never leads to the elevation of renunciation. So such people will not attain their desired result, who have quit their duties simply because of fear of bodily discomfort. But somebody who has genuinely risen in bhakti, Krishna has allowed them in the 11th canto. So that is the answer to your query. Right? But even those people who genuinely rise in bhakti, they become very mature, and many of them still continue to execute their duties. Like Janak Maharaj, Ambarish Maharaj, etc. They were still householders. So that person will be on a different level of maturity. But there are many immature renunciants, and Krishna has specified that their renunciation is in the mode of passion. So that is the answer.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Very grateful. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Next we have Dipayan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you again for your wonderful class. My question is regarding the 8th Namaparada. This is little relevant to in India, maybe the devotees outside India may not feel relevant. In preaching to very new people, sometimes we make this point that different yuga dharmas were there, meditation, yagya and all that. And in Kali Yuga, we can't do all these things in Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga, it's just naam sankirtan. So is this kind of preaching correct, or should we not teach like this? Because maybe many people will get that idea because they heard this in their first time or whatever. Yeah.
So Prabhuji, please tell me, what are the yuga dharmas?
Kriteya dhyayato Vishnu.
Dhyayato whom?
Meditation on Vishnu. Vishnu.
Tritayam yajato. In
Yajato Makhe.
Yagya for whom?
Vishnu.
Dwapare paricharyaya. In Dwapar Yuga, worship of whom?
Vishnu.
So all the 4 yuga dharmas are direct bhakti, Prabhu?
Again, no, I just gave that as an example, but sometimes that point is made, no, that many rituals we can't do. There's so much money is required, so much ghee is required. Just chant Hare Krishna. It's like so simple. So we try to inspire people to come to chanting the holy names through this. So should we teach like that, or is that not correct?
If you are comparing yuga dharmas, you are allowed to compare yuga dharmas. In Treta Yuga, the yuga dharma was fire sacrifices. It is not possible now because of lack of resources and lack of qualified people. But that same result that was obtained by fire sacrifices in Treta Yuga for Vishnu can be obtained by Harinam Sankirtan for Vishnu in Kali Yuga. What is the problem in saying this?
Nothing.
There is also a verse about that. Let me show you a verse. I remembered a verse. Yadapnoti tadapnoti kalau sankirte keshavam. Let me see. Yes. Here it is. It's quoted in one of the purports, Srimad Bhagavatam. It is from Brihan Naradiya Puran. Yeah. Dhyayan krite yajan yajyais tretayam dvaparer chayan yadapnoti tadapnoti kalau sankirte keshavam. Please read the translation, Prabhu.
Whatever is achieved in Satya Yuga by meditation, in Treta by offering ritual sacrifices, and in Dwapara by temple worship is achieved in Kali Yuga by chanting the names of Lord Keshava congregationally.
Yes. So all these are also devotional processes. Nothing else. Because dhyana on Vishnu, yajna for Vishnu, archan for Vishnu. So all of these were devotional processes. You are comparing two devotional processes and you are saying one of them is not possible. So you do what is recommended for the age of Kali. So no problem in comparing two devotional processes. Right?
Okay. Thank you, Professor. Yes, bro. Thank you.
Next we have Paramakaruna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. I really, really like the principle that you discussed today of Atidesha. Very new, and the way you explained with the fruit bowl and very clear explanation. Like I was very delighted by hearing that. Thank you so much. There is so much to learn from every class.
Atidesh is one of
Prabhuji,
the 6 types of sutras. Sangya cha, paribhasha cha, vidhir, niyama eva cha, atidesha adhikaras shadvidham sutra sangitam. One of the 6 types of sutras in grammar. So, the credit goes to my teachers who taught me what it is. Yes, Prabhu, please ask.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for being our teacher and passing it forward. Thank you so much. Prabhuji, my question is this on this offense, the 7th offense, about even thinking of papa buddhi, and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, verse number 7, as you know, talks about in Kali Yuga, one does not attract sinful reaction by thinking, but only it has to be done. So my question is that there it talks about general sinful action. I recognize that. Here it is talking about doing sinful action on the strength of the holy name. So I just wanted to clarify the understanding I'm taking away by harmonizing both of these or synthesizing both of these concepts is that this one is an exception that overrides the other one. The 7th offense overrides the Srimad Bhagavatam, because in this particular case, one is committing the sinful activity on the strength of the holy name, Namaparadha, and then it does attract Namaparadha offense.
Okay. So,
is that correct?
Yeah. For example, see, first and foremost, the verse in the Bhagavatam is speaking about papa, which is committed mentally. Let's take the example of a mental papa. So, mentally, I may start, somebody may start lusting after somebody else's spouse. And mentally, he may visualize himself as having an affair with somebody else's spouse. Now, he's not doing it actually. He's doing it mentally. So, this is a papa on the mental level. The verse says that as long as it doesn't turn into an action, it is not counted in Kali Yuga. That is what it says. Now, a person starts thinking that, okay, but, since I am chanting Hari Naam, therefore I am free to think about these things. That is when a new variable has been introduced into the entire equation. That is when Harinam's rules will start applying, because as soon as you introduced Harinam in the equation, that I will mentally lust after somebody else's spouse, and anyways I am chanting Harinam, so that will take care of it. That is when the rules of Harinam start applying. And there is a difference between aparadha and paap. So when you have an aparadha, what is the result of paap and what is the result of aparadha? So can you tell me, Prabhu, what is the result of paap?
That according to the law of karma, we get the reaction.
Wonderful. Once you get a reaction and you exhaust the reaction, the paap is over and the paap karma is also over. Right? What is the result of aparadha?
Lord Krishna personally, takes offense, and
okay.
Law of karma does not apply. But Lord Krishna personally interferes with the aparadhi.
In practical terms, what does aparadha result in?
Our diminishing of our devotional service.
Wonderful. And delay and diminish of bhakti. And in some cases, Bhagwan can give some negative reaction by his own, but not according to law of karma. So there is a difference between paap and aparadha. So the domain of paap is different, the domain of aparadha is different. In Kali Yuga, although it is said that mental paap doesn't, apply, give a reaction. But does it say that mental paap, does not further fructify into physical paap? That is not what is said. You may commit a mental paap and then the seed for physical paap is already there. So if we start harboring on mental paap, obviously at some point of time, the thoughts will change into words and words will change into actions. There is always a possibility. So as long as it is within the mind, Kali Yuga, won't give you a reaction. But still there is a problem. The problem is that it is growing in the mind. And if one thinks that, let it grow in the mind, I will cleanse it using Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That is where you get infected with the aparadha. That is what it is. Right.
Sure, Prabhuji. So just to kind of summarize, even though the thought that I will use Harinam to counteract the paap, everything that we said is at a mental level right now. The aparadha has not been, the paap has not been committed, and I may not even have actually chanted Harinam to nullify the paap, even if I committed it. That thought itself just came that if I chant Harinam, then it's all in the if, my kind of space. I have actually not done that. Still, that in this particular case, the very fact that I had that kind of consideration, that thought, is naam aparadha. That is the conclusion, or that's the understanding, what I'm taking away. Correct?
So, and any tendency to commit even a mental paap and to think that I will drive it away by chanting or Harinam, immediately you will be, the victimization by aparadha will be there immediately. Okay.
Got it. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Such a nice clarification. Wonderful.
Next we have Rahul Pashan Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
My pranams.
Prabhuji, your class proves that we require a guru. Otherwise, even we think that we have studied Upadeshamritam, but actually there is so much to learn. We only certify ourselves that we have studied it. So thank you very much for taking us in so much depth of the subject. And we never imagined Rupa Goswami has written such a deep subject. We thought it is 11 verses only, but it is really very deep. So thank you for this. Prabhuji, my question is that Tavat Karmani Kurvita, as you have already explained that, so Bhakti Mataji has asked and it is okay. But still I have this question that now we say that since we have come in devotional service, now especially, let me be specific. So Pitru Paksh is coming and we have Shraddha. So is it required for the devotee? Because I have not read anything and I did not find anything in Hari Bhakti Vilas also. So is it required or not required for grahastha? Now we are grahastha, so is it required or not?
Basically, the Bhagavad Gita says Lupta Pindodaka Kriya. So, Prabhu, what is the meaning of Lupta Pindodaka Kriya?
Yeah. Yes, Prabhuji. Shraddha only, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Shraddha. So it is required. It is
Okay.
required for. Okay.
Yes, it is required. There is an entire section in Satkriya Sar Deepika,
Okay. Okay, Prabhuji.
which deals with Vaishnav Shraddha. So,
Okay.
if you wish to explore this topic in detail, I have uploaded on my archive page a Hindi
Prabhuji.
version of Satkriya Sar Deepika. You can look it up, and in that there is a discussion on Vaishnav Shraddha. So that is
Okay, Prabhuji. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, no, that will be helpful. Prabhuji. I think I have downloaded, but then I will go through it, Prabhuji. Yeah,
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Done with me. Hare Krishna.
Next we have Divya Nitai Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I pronounce.
Prabhuji, the same verse which you quoted, this Tavat Karmani Purvita. In this, Prabhuji, this karma, what this verse describes means that karma is like nowadays we see even the sadhaka, or they are most of them, they are not doing according to their varna and ashrama, especially the varna, the karma, what we are doing in our life. So this verse prescribes about the karma according to varna, or by default what people are doing nowadays.
See, the verse speaks ideally about Vedic karma according to your varna and ashram. Now, we might not be performing karma according to our varna and ashram, but we might have taken the karma of some other varna and some other ashram. But still, whichever varna and ashram's karma we have taken up, that we are supposed to perform. We take up a certain karma according to somebody else's varna and ashram because we are either we are inclined to that, that particular ashram's karma, or we take to some other karma because we are forced due to situation. But in any case, if we have taken up the karma of some other varna and some other ashram, we should do justice to that. For example, Dronacharya was a Brahmana, but he fought on the battlefield. When he fought on the battlefield, the rules of a Kshatriya started applying to him. So, he had to fight according to the rules of a Kshatriya. On the battlefield, he cannot say, because Brahmanas, there is a rule. Brahmano na hantavya. You should never kill a Brahmana. According to this rule, Dronacharya should never be killed on the battlefield. But did they kill Dronacharya on the battlefield? Yes. Why? Because Dronacharya is not acting in his position. Dronacharya is acting in whose position? Divya Nitai Prabhu, please tell me.
Kshatriya.
Kshatriya. Are you allowed to kill a Kshatriya in war?
Yes.
Yes. So you might have changed. So whatever you have changed, do justice to that, duty which you have taken up.
Then Prabhuji, then other side we hear this Krishna's instruction in Bhagavad Gita, par dharmo bhayava, that one should not do somebody else's duties. So
obviously that will always, that is always remain. That to do somebody else's duties is always fearful. But now you have no choice. So if you have a choice to switch back to your original varna and ashram duties, you should switch back. And if you don't have a choice, then execute whatever is your current duties nicely. That is what we can be said. If you have a choice to switch back, then you switch back. I'll just very small example. Usually I don't like to give this example so much. When I completed my education, I did a job for 3 months, and that job was working in the IT sector. And I did not like it because it was, it was not according to my nature. But as long as I did it, I tried to do justice to it for 3 months. Later, I switched to teaching, because teaching is according to my swabhav, according to my varna, according to my ashram. If it is possible to switch, then switch. If it is not possible to switch, then do justice to whatever your current situation is. All right? Okay.
Thank you, Bhaji.
Thank you.
Next we have, we haven't taken a question from Kaushik Prabhu, have we?
No, Sachindra Krishna Prabhu and Kaushik Prabhu are remaining.
Okay. So we'll go with Sachindra Krishna Prabhu next.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. It's so wonderful to hear your classes all the time, even yesterday when you gave one that was excellent also. And all the questions that devotees ask, it's so amazing, you know, all the questions that I have are answered. You know, I'm not one that can, you know, I understand maybe 10%. I'm not very shastric, and I know that. And the way I visualize Harinam, as you said, is, you know, Harinam is to attain Krishna prema. It's to serve Krishna with all your heart and love, and all of these rules that we have are to help us facilitate not committing aparadhas. But as you said, Harinam is so high. It's on a pedestal. It stands on its own. And so the way I look at it, and I want just clarification, because since I don't understand so much and it's hard to remember everything, is I place Harinam on a pedestal on top of my head, and I'm getting whipped by all of the papa and the bhoga that I do due to my material conditioning and my tendencies. But I still never equate Harinam with helping me with getting rid of all my whippings that I'm taking on my back and front, because I have these tendencies, but sincerely praying to Krishna that please allow me to serve you by chanting your holy name. The whippings may come, but let them come, because it's just how I am at this stage, but please let me chant for your pleasure. I know that may be simplified, and understanding some of these topics may help me more not getting whipped and do my service better, but you know, Harinam is so great. Why even put stipulations on, you know, aparadhas and so many things that, you know, why bring it down from the pedestal? I don't know if that's right to think of.
Wonderful. Actually, your understanding is that Harinam is mainly for attaining Krishna Prem. And if there are any negative reactions for any bhoga obviously will not give negative reactions, but papa, then I am willing to suffer through them, but I don't want to use Harinam for eradicating them. If that is your understanding, is that your understanding, Prabhu? Let me ask you to unmute. Yeah. Is that your understanding, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. I mean, I don't even want to bring Harinam to any level, below the pedestal.
Yeah. So this is given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm sharing my screen, and Prabhu, you can read the translation. 10.14.8. Tattenu kampam susamikshamanu bhunjana evatmakritam vipakam hridvagvapurvir vidadhan namaste jiveta yomukti pade sadaya bhak. Prabhu, you kindly read the translation, Prabhu. No, once again you are muted. Just a minute. I will ask you to unmute again. Yes, Prabhu, kindly read the translation.
My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim.
Yeah. So this is the situation of a person who is not expecting, cleansing of sins from Harinam, who is willing to tolerate the reactions, and who still remains favorable to Bhagavan. So if that is your, thought process, then you are eligible for liberation because it has become your dai bhak. your eligible, your rightful inheritance. That is the answer to your query.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu messaged me to take over. So, Omkar Prabhu, did he ask a question already? I can't
Yes,
remember.
he asked a question. Now we have Kaushik
And then
Prabhu
Kaushik Prabhu.
and Rohini Nandan Prabhu in the line.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you. Thank you very much for the class, and it was very clear on these two Namaparadhas, and especially like what it means about the Namaparadha in detail, and exactly like what all justifications many times come up with that were all clarified. So my question like was very similar to the question by Sachinder Krishna Prabhu. So actually this comes like if some tendencies remain from the past for someone like that, so about some sinful activity, then one should never justify that like, okay, I will perform Harinam for that. But if something is there, then one should like definitely put effort to give that sinful tendency and completely get purified, and never use Harinam like to get purified of that. But yeah, but be ready to suffer whatever is there, but never actually use Harinam for that. But yeah, that's the idea. Yeah.
Never with a malicious intent use Harinam for, or not, never with a malicious intent use any limb of bhakti for that sake.
Yeah, never.
For the purpose of committing new sinful activities. That's what it is. All right.
Yes, I think it's clarified. Previous question was similar. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Rohini Nandan Prabhu, please unmute.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much for the my pranams, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the wonderful class. Prabhu, I just had a question about the answer you just gave about like how the devotee we should tolerate that Tatyenu Kampa verse, like so Prabhu, is there a scenario like where this verse does not apply, like if our tolerating the reactions of our past karma hampers our devotional service, in that case, like is it still worth it? Is it still worth tolerating?
The thing is, if tolerating is hampering our devotional service, is it still worth it? I'll give you a simple example. Once Shri Sanatan Goswami was in Govardhan. In Govardhan, he was at one place where, where there was a Shivalinga nearby. There were many mosquitoes there. And the mosquitoes were biting him. It became, at one point of time, it became difficult to continue to write and at the same time, tolerate the mosquito bites. So Shri Sanatan Goswami, because it was becoming unfavorable for his bhakti, so he started giving up that place. And then Bhagwan Shiva came in his dream and said, please don't leave. I really like you to stay here. I will ensure that this place is mosquito free. So there is a place in Govardhan Parikrama which is mosquito free. And because Bhagwan Shiva, this Sanatan Goswami's bhajan kutir there. And so if it starts going against your devotional service, you can give up that place or that person instead of retaliate, but don't retaliate. That is the thought process of the devotee, all right? Because if we start using this just as an excuse to start retaliating, that is a problem. You have an option to give up a particular place, if it is going against your bhakti. There is also another example of this in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I think it's in the 5th canto, where Bhagwan Rishabdev, he started doing something in order to counteract the disturbances that were caused. Here is the verse. It's not a verse, it's a paragraph. Yarhi vavasa bhagavan lokam imam yoga syadha pratipam 5532. And Prabhuji, Rohini Nandan Prabhu, you can kindly read the translation of this. Please read, Prabhu.
when Lord Rishabdev saw that the general populace was very antagonistic to his execution of mystic yoga, he accepted the behavior of a python in order to counteract their opposition. Thus he stayed in one place and lay down. While lying down, he ate and drank, and he passed stool and urine and rolled in it. Indeed, he smeared his whole body with his own stool and urine so that opposing elements might not come and disturb him.
Yeah.
Sorry, Prabhu, for the disturbance.
No worries. So, Lord Rishabdev actually started doing something in order to counteract. But you are not expected to do something in order to count. If you, the maximum that a devotee should do is leave that place or leave that person who is disturbing. Like Sanatan Goswami did. Because we can't imitate Rishabdev, but at least we can follow in the footsteps of Sri Sanatan Goswami. So that is my suggestion. All right. I hope this satisfies your query. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I think we are in the second round.
Yeah.
So I will ask Mohit Deshmukh Prabhu to unmute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So Prabhuji, first of all, this question is not regarding to this katha, but as you answered to Omkar Prabhu, that is related to it. It is in the like Vachuvekam. It is. If you allow, can I ask regarding?
Yeah. Your voice is slightly unclear. You have to speak loudly.
Okay, let me off the phone. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Yes. So as you said that, and according to the Sadhu Guru Shastra only, that unless we are Guru, we can't judge anyone. We have no adhikar to judge anyone. But sometimes in our like-minded devotee friend circles, we correct each other, and no one actually takes offense. Like they are more than our like own brother, so they don't take offense. And sometimes we correct them or they correct us. So in this, like in Sahrida Vaishnava circle, so this regard, can we judge our friends? Not judge, but sometimes we see anarthas, and to help them, we advise something according to only Sadhu Guru Shastra only. So is it correct?
So friendship allows you certain adhikar. And there are many verses in Shastra which, allow a particular person to take on the role of a friend to take on the role of correcting another friend. There is a very nice verse in Subhashit Ratna Bhandagaram which specifies the 6 functions of a good friend. So I will share my screen. Just a minute. So papan nivarayati yojayate hitaya. Guhyam cha guhati gunan prakati karoti. Apad gatam na cha jahati dadati kale. Sanmitra lakshanam idam pravadanti santaha. Can you see the 6? Yes?
Yes, Prabhu.
Papan nivarayati. Saintly souls say that a true friend performs the following act. Papan nivarayati. Rescuing the friend from an incorrect path. Yojayate hitaya. Engaging the friend on a beneficial path. So these are functions of a friend. So you have some adhikar as a friend, but you should do it privately. Okay?
Yes, Prabhu. Can you share it on the group, this verse?
Sure.
Whenever
Sure.
you are done.
Sure.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Omkar Prabhuji, please unmute. Omkar.
Yes, Prabhuji, I had a question about this 8th offense. I had heard another version of this Namapradas, which I think I'll share on the group. There, the point was mentioned that the Nitya Naimitthika Karmas should not be abundant on the strength of Harinam. So, as we see that in general in our Sampradaya, that this feeling is given an importance, that if required, you can give your Nitya Naimitthika Karmas for the help for progressing in bhakti. But this point is there that generally the other Vaishnava Sampradayas, or in general, the Vaishnavas say that you should not give up your Nitya Naimitthika Karmas. And in the current scenario, I would like to ask this example, like this may be applied to more for the Indian origin. So like Indians who have like some Nitya Naimitthika Karmas, or basically have some family traditions, sometimes it might have been lost, let's say, for just one generation. So when they come to devotional life and they are interested to preserve the tradition, so devotees sometimes say that there's no need for to you to take up this tradition or start it again, when it is not complete lopa, it is just that one or two generations have been just lost. So in such scenario, when the devotee is not completely above his swabhava, or basically I would say he is not completely, like as Krishna says, like he does not have complete detachment from the you could say material life. So in such a scenario, what is the result of such actions, giving up the Nitya Naimittika Karma by a devotee?
See, when somebody gives up their Nitya and Naimitthika Karma, there is fear of negative reaction, paap. And that is the reason why Bhagavan said in Bhagavad Gita that aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami. I will rescue if you take full shelter of me. So when the Gaudiya Vaishnavas say that you give up your duties and you take full shelter, they are saying because Bhagavan has given that assurance. But the Gaudiya Vaishnavas expect you to take full shelter. And if you are not able to take full shelter, then you have to act according to your varna and ashram. While acting according to your varna and ashram, you have to perform certain duties. You should try to devotionalize all those duties as much as possible. And so if some duties cannot be devotionalized, at least surrender them to Bhagavan. Offer them to Bhagavan. That is what can be done.
Prabhu, the full surrender will be like after Diksha, or is it just the 6 limbs of the Sharanagati?
The full surrender is defined by Bhagavan himself. I quoted the verse, Tavat Karmani Kurvita. Until you naturally feel detached, or until you have firm Shraddha that by doing Krishna Katha and Krishna Bhajan, I will achieve everything in life. That is the point of full surrender.
Okay, Prabhu. Yes, sure. Done.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Kamniya Krishna Prabhu, please unmute.
Thank you, Param Karuna Prabhu, for giving a chance again. So, Prabhuji, this question arose basically on the answer you gave to Bhakti Mataji, that premature renunciation, which basically turns to the actual renunciation. So I was just wondering that if any person, say, follows, a renunciation for, say, considerable amount of time, say 5-10 years or something, is there any possibility that he again gets attached to the material stuff? Is that, I'm wondering that if we say perform this like 10-20 years, how we can come back to that material attachment, and how we should understand the situation.
It is possible that a person who might be practicing renunciation for a certain number of years, he may again develop material attachments. Because there are many reasons for a person. A devotee can develop material attachments again if they commit some aparadha towards a Vaishnava. So they may be practicing devotional service for decades, but if they have committed some Vaishnava aparadha, some seva aparadha, it is possible that they may again develop material attachments. That is possible. Rupa Goswami has said in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Bhavopi abhavatam yati Krishna preshthāparadhatah. I will try to find that verse where he says, Bhavopyabhavatam yati Krishna preshthāparadhatah. Where he says basically that even bhav bhakti, you can come down from the stage of bhav bhakti also if you commit aparadha. So let me find that verse for you. Yes, bhavopyabhavamayati Krishna preshthha paradhatah. I am sharing my screen. This is Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 1354. Bhavopi, even bhav bhakti, abhavam ayati. It reduces. Krishna preshtha aparadhatah. If you perform aparadha to somebody who is dear to Krishna, this is possible.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Bhakti Mataji.
Thank you for giving me another chance. This is in continuation of the question that Rohini Nandan Prabhu asked. So if something is not anukulya, you mentioned, Prabhuji, that you can leave the place and person. My question is, if we are suffering sinful reaction in our own health, I cannot leave that. What is the correct mindset to understand when it comes to working on your health? I've heard versions in our society of, being very health conscious is being in Maya. But then really when you don't have a good health, it is not really possible to perform devotional service. And it is not one of those categories of leaving the place and leaving the person. So I want to understand the right context of how do you treat health and ill health, and how much time and energy should be spent really on fixing it, so that it becomes anukulya, the body becomes anukulya for performing devotional service. Thank you.
So how much time how much effort should we give on our health so that it becomes anukul for our devotional service? A lot of maintaining health comes under the umbrella of the term sato vritte, following the conduct of the sadhus. So how do the sadhus stay, how do the traditional sadhus conduct their health? On traditional sadhus, most of them maintain their health by eating frugally, and most of their bodily exercise consists of parikramas or paying obeisances, etc. And they are not, those who are in bhakti yoga, they are not mostly seen to be doing any other sort of physical exercise or so. Although physical exercise is definitely required for all sorts of philosophers, it's important that all sorts of philosophers should have some routine of physical fitness. But if physical fitness comes as a side effect of executing some acts of bhakti, then why separately do it? So eating frugally and to perform limbs of bhakti that require physical exertion are automatic ways of ensuring that your health will remain proper. So these are the basic things which a devotee can do: eating frugally and performing limbs of bhakti which require physical exertion, like paying obeisances or doing parikrama, etc. These are very good, but not with the aim that these limbs are going to help me increase my health. Health should never be on our mind, which health will come as a side effect of, executing all these limbs of bhakti. Nowadays, there is some thought process in the society of devotees, Ekadashi for health benefits. So that is not the, what Ekadashi is meant for. Health benefits, let them be a side effect of, natural side effect of executing limbs of bhakti. But if somebody is suffering from a bodily disease, and that is definitely going to affect their execution of bhakti, then they should take the remedy. Whatever remedy, makes it easiest for them to execute their bhakti. And whatever remedy is free from any sort of negative reactions. So that is what. Right.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Trapti Mataji or Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
My pranams.
Prabhuji, I have a question on the line of Prem Karuna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, can I speak in Hindi?
Sure, I'll have to then translate it into English. Yeah.
प्रभुजी जैसे मन के पाप कलयुग में पाप की तरह काउंट नहीं होते, तो अगर जैसे सपोज करो मैंने मन में किसी को कर्ज किया तो ये पाप नहीं हुआ, और फिर मैंने ये भी नहीं सोचा कि मतलब हरि नाम क्लीन करेगा क्योंकि पाप ही नहीं हुआ, तो ये अपराध में काउंट नहीं होगा ना? बट इट इज पाप एंड पाप बुद्धि.
See, so your question is, if you mentally curse somebody, but you don't use Harinam to, wash it away. So, although it is a mental paap, but it is not Harinam aparadha because you are not using Harinam to cleanse it. That's a clear understanding. को समझ में आया? Let me unmute. आप please don't mute immediately. Yeah, आपको समझ में आया?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Prabhuji. Divya Nitai Prabhu, please unmute.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for giving me a second chance. Prabhuji, like we are hearing about the glories of holy name and also how to offer respect to the holy name. At the same time, I also heard Prabhuji, your lecture on Namastakam, where in the second verse, where we explain about this Tvam Anadarat Api Manag Udiritam. Then Prabhuji, here even that holy name is chanted disrespectfully, we speak about this. Then Prabhuji, how to reconcile both the things?
Another there meant Namabhas. Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan in the commentary had said Namabhas, not Namaparadha. So another is Namabhas. Namabhas, the discussion has not come up yet in our Upadeshamritam. Because another is definitely Namaparadha. Namaparadha is severe another. But there another in that particular verse simply meant Namabhas. It did not mean Namaparadha. So in the commentary of Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan, he had clearly specified that Anadarat means Sanketya Parihasyadi. That is what Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan had written in the commentary. Let me show you the commentary on Tvamanadaradhapi managudiritam nikilogra papa patalim vilumpasi. All right. Let me share my screen with you. Okay. So this is what it is. Tvam anadaradapi managudiritam. This is the verse you are speaking of. You can see in the commentary by Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan, Anadarat Samketya Parihasadina api. Basically, he is speaking out Sanketya Parihasya, 4 types of Namabhas here. So he is not speaking about Namaparadha anywhere. So Sanketya Parihasya, indirectly chanting it in humor, chanting it in neglect. That is Namabhas. So that discussion will come up after we do Namaparadha discussion. Right?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Prabhuji. Trapti Mataji again, you can unmute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, if we intentionally commit the mental paap, then it can be called as paap buddhi. And also if we commit aparadha in man towards a Vaishnava or Guru, then it is unforgivable aparadha, right?
If we intentionally commit paap in our mind, it is definitely paap buddhi, but it is not namnah balat paap buddhi. You have till now not introduced naam into it. So it will become an aparadha only when you use naam to cleanse it away. So paap buddhi is pape buddhi. Once your buddhi is in, once your intelligence is thinking of committing any paap, that is paap buddhi. But as long as you are not doing on the strength of naam, till that time it is not an aparadha. So there's a difference between aparadha and paap. I clarified with Param Karuna Prabhu. And you said aparadha towards a Vaishnava, mentally performing an aparadha towards a Vaishnava. And we have discussed 6 transgressions against a Vaishnava. I had discussed Hanti, Nindati, Vai, Dveshti. That verse I had taken up previously. In a previous talk, I will again share that verse with you. Hanti nindati vaidveshti vaishnavan abhinandati krudhyate yati no harsham darshane patanani shat. So Hanti nindati vaidveshti. The 6 cause of degradation and fall down are Hanti, to strike a Vaishnav, nindati, criticize him, adveshti, to mentally hate him. So this is one of the types of Vaishnava aparadhas. So when a Vaishnava aparadha is committed in mind, it applies as a Vaishnava aparadha. So that is the answer to your query.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for clarifying.
All right.
Hare Krishna.
My pranams.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. That brings us to the end of our wonderful Q&A session. So, Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, Prabhu, are you still kind of around to close the call? And okay, probably he's busy. So I will allow. Yeah, I think he already gave permission to. So yeah, I invite all devotees to unmute themselves. You should be able to do that now. And let us show our hearty appreciation to His
Thank you
Grace
so
Hari Pārṣada Prabhu.
much, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji ki jai. Thank you
Jai.
so much for
Hari
wonderful
Pārṣada
class,
Prabhu ki
Prabhuji.
jai.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Srila
you,
Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Thank you, Harishar Prabhu. You're the best.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
And wishing all devotees a very, very happy, wonderful Shri Krishna Janmashtami.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you
Srila
so much.
Prabhupada appearance day.
Ki jai.
Thank you, Hari Pārṣada Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Thank you so much.
So much.
Srila Prabhupada.
Ki jai.